urban fantasy. It is you and your friend's duty to protect the world from the monsters that they don't know about. Whether it's through organizations or your own means, you fight. You fight together, or you die alone. Welcome to Monster of the Week.
Welcome to Great Escape Games. I'm Tasha.
I'm Zack.
And we're here for another review of an RPG. This week is Monster of the Week.
Wonder what we'll be fighting this time.
All right, let's go ahead and introduce character creation. This is actually a fairly simple process because it is all a single page, double-sided, but everything on that character sheet is going to walk you through how to build a character. As
a simple-to-play 2d6 system that is powered by the Apocalypse, Monster of the Week is one of the many different versions of that RPG system. But simplicity doesn't mean no fun, it means easy to play.
So classes in this system are referred to as playbooks. Each character gets 2 sheets about the abilities they can do.
It is important to know that each player character can only be one of each of these classes, as to not step on any other player's shoes. You want each individualized player to have a feeling and a role for what they're doing.
So, getting started with the first playbook is The Chosen. This is your Buffy character, the one who is destined to fight monsters from birth.
Next is The Crooked, the criminal, gone to fight in the aid of most humans only because they were trapped in a corner by the monster itself. They've seen the horrors, so they must do what they can to protect themselves and maybe make some money along the way.
Next is the Divine. This righteous character has either been chosen by the gods or is an angel or other divine being descended among men. This character is here to protect humanity and defend the good and protect the weak.
Then there's the Expert, someone who's trained and studied about monsters and magic their entire life. Not relatively adept in anything, but they know when a monster finally shows up their doorstep, they'll be ready.
Next is the Flake. This character spent their life online, researching and finding all of the little inconsistencies that the government is trying to hide from you. They'll be ready when the monsters come knocking at their door because they've already set the booby traps.
Next is the Initiate, part of the religious holy order that can use to fight against monsters. Your learning through the religious faith can help you in any particular circumstance. So you're told.
Next is the Monstrous. This is someone who has been corrupted by the evil in the world and is now using it to fight the other monsters among them. You're using your powers to protect humanity instead of fight them.
The Mundane just kind of showed up into all this circumstance. Trapped by all the monsters surrounded by them, they're just a normal person trying to live out their everyday lives. Fortunately, you gotta deal with a few things before you can go back to that. If you can.
The Professional is hired by the government. The government knows that there are monsters there, and it's your job to file the paperwork, clean up their messes, and put them down.
Next is the Spellslingers, masters of magic, modern-day wizards, one might say. Powers that they've learned through the ages, using to fight against monsters for the sake of humanity.
The Spook has been gifted with these dark, supernatural powers that they must keep in check, to not hurt their friends, but to use against their enemies.
Then there is the Wronged, someone who has had to fight against monsters because they've lost something, and they're willing to do anything they can to correct it, and even go so far as even after they've got their revenge, to make sure it never happens again. And if none of those playbooks seem too interesting to you, don't worry, there's always more. Inside the next book, Tome of Mysteries, there's even a few more that you might be able to find interesting yourself.
And if that isn't enough, there's more on their website at evilhat.com/home/monster of the week.
And finally, when you've finally chosen a playbook, you get to do one thing: create them. Don't worry, it's pretty simple. You just go through the list and checkmark and bubble in whatever you think that you want and you need according to whatever it says.
As for leveling up, it's a very similar process. You simply flip to the back of the character sheet, checkmark the level up you wish, and fill out the stats accordingly.
How do I gain experience, one might ask? Well, anytime you fail, you gain experience, learning from your mistakes, which is a fantastic system, by the way.
So, the general layout for dice and mechanics in this game to resolve conflict is resolved through 2d6. On a 7, through 9, that is considered a mixed success. You do what you want, but the DM, or the keeper in this case, has a couple different consequences for you. A 10 up means you succeed without failure or with any kind of negative effect to you. At later dates, if you get unlock different powers, you can actually do a critical success with a 12. But if you roll a 6 or lower, that is considered the failure. You mark experience points, and the keeper does something nasty to you.
Now that the fight has sprung, guess what's gonna happen? It's time for initiative. You don't usually roll as you would in most games. It's all about picking and choosing who to go. But be wise, the monster attacks on your turn as well.
So, how that works is every time you attack the monster attacks back. So you have to find the advantageous point to make sure that you're not getting hurt and slain while you slay the monster.
It's all about finding the weakness of the creature. Otherwise, consider yourselves dead.
Yes, you literally cannot kill the beast without finding the weakness. That's where these basic actions come in, so you can solve the mystery about what's going on, what's this monster's type, and what is its weakness.
There are 8 basic actions inside Monster of the Week, each of them containing to their own specific purpose, and all of them useful, which is incredibly nice.
All of these work on the same basic 2d6 principles that we've already established. So, there's act under pressure, which is trying to do something in duress. Flinging open a door when a monster's chasing behind you. Making sure you can load your gun when you're looking down the fangs of a werewolf. Anything of the sort where you're trying to manipulate something or manipulate a situation in your advantage while under duress.
Then there's helping out. Anything that you can do to help out the next player and whatever they need to accomplish on, don't worry. That lock needs to get picked, you can always join and help out. That door is really stuck and the player's not getting through it, it's your job in order to help out too. You may not be strong, but every little bit helps.
One of the most used actions is investigate a mystery. You'll get a series of questions that, depending on how well you roll, you get to ask your keeper, and the keeper will answer honestly and to as much as you can find at the current situation. These slowly let you solve the mystery as you get to kind of answer the who, what, when, where about what's going on.
For the next action, I'm going to have to say pardon my French. It is kick some ass, which we all would love to do if it was so easy, but monsters are difficult and hard to kill. For the remainder of this video, we are going to refer to it as kick some butt, as we don't want to get anything too dangerous. When fighting a monster, it's all about trying to get that 7 or higher, but recall that attacking a monster attacks you back. So you have to be careful. You have to play to its weaknesses. You have to know what your character is good at. Staying out of range, staying in combat is a dangerous thing. And that's what it should feel like. This game is all about making you feel the weight of your actions.
There is always the action to manipulate someone. This is either to get the hunters around you, the other players, to do something you need, or to manipulate some of the NPCs or other civilians to aid you in maybe freeing you from jail because the monster's barreling down and, well, as much as they're sheriff and might be armed, they don't know that you have the weakness that only it can be slain from.
You can also even manipulate intelligent monsters, or even some of the dumber ones, but be careful with that. There's always dire consequences. There's also the ability to protect someone, make sure that they don't get harmed. Well, though they may not, you might be the one taking the damage.
But sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you need to save the little kid that's nightmares have came to life and is now attacking them. So that's where protect someone comes in.
You can also always read a bad situation. Is the building on fire and need to find the quickest escape? Or need to understand anything else about the building or anyone else inside the building itself? Well, there's a list of questions for that as well. You can always ask, and the GM's job is to answer as truthfully as possible.
And now for my personal favorite, use magic. This covers anything that involves a spell, conjuring, or protection. Whether you want to enchant a weapon or summon a small fae to come to your aid, this is all covered under use magic. A subsection of use magic is called big magic. This is used for any large rituals that would take maybe multiple games or even the whole campaign to set up. This is for something like stopping the end of days, resurrecting someone from the dead, sealing Satan himself back into hell. Also, with each playbook comes Playbook Actions,
Ones that are dedicated to each individual class that you can play as specifically because you are the professional, the chosen, the divine, all so that you can prove that you are in fact one of those people.
Much like any game powered by the apocalypse, it is setting specific. In this case, urban fantasy. That means you're going to look at modern or recently modern technology. Guns are going to be available. Cell phones are an option. Google is your best friend in this case. But so might be an ancient library. It's all up to the keeper's discretion.
Also cars.
Oh yeah, but...
Also cars. You can also say you have a cars.
Cars are nice.
Cars are nice.
Here to drive.
Next is all for the GMs, or the keepers in this particular case. Creating an arc, or session for this particular matter, individualized monsters that can take up from either one individualized session or the entire next few. It's all about making a monster so your players can solve the mystery and then defeat it.
Speaking of the monster, there's the monster agenda. This is a countdown describing what the monster's plans are without the heroes ever showing up. Are they here to take over the world or just eat the people in this town? You would go through the countdown that would show it, going from sunrise to sunset, showing that the monster's plan in vague terms without having a defined timeline, but enough that a keeper can keep track of what's going on and where the monster should be at any given time. Also for the keepers are the threat sheets. These are like stat blocks for each of the monsters and the minions that you'll be using. They're going to look a lot like the Hunter's Playbooks, where you fill out a couple markers, add a couple powers, and then you have the health pool for the monster. It's all going to be right there in front of you on your agenda sheet. So all of this is all going to be on one page for you.
There are also a handful of monsters already prepared inside the book, so if you really don't know what to create, there's something already there for you. There's also a few of the arcs already pre-made as well, what their plans are, what they're going to do, everything right in for your hands.
These provide excellent examples for you and things you can base off for making your next monster. And again, because the system's fairly bookend-ish per adventure, because it's supposed to be episodic, your monsters are going to be one adventure's worth or maybe a couple adventures worth of them solving the mystery, figuring out what this monster is, how to defeat it, and then going about defeating it. There shouldn't be a whole lot of else going on in the background. Keeping it easy for you, the keeper. As for the book layout, you have player information up front, and you have keeper information in the back, like traditional, but there's a wonderful page 13. This page 13 has a quick reference list of everything you need to read to get started. So you can cut down on reading the whole book if you don't want to or need to pick this up real quick during the convention. All your resources, including playbooks and keeper agenda sheets, are on their website. So you can print everything out, including pretty much all the rules, on 2 pages in a matter of minutes. There's, 5 pages total you might need? That's including each player's playbook. So next we're going to talk about world building. This is actually fairly interesting as a concept because not only is it important for the keeper to lay out a few key landmarks such as where the main mystery is starting, either someone died and they need to investigate that area, and maybe where they're going to end up finding the monster, where's the monster's hideout, things like that. The rest of it's actually provided by the hunters.
The hunters each have their own little lore section inside their playbooks that they may not even realize at first, but it does kind of weave in as much as they want it to or as much as the keeper wants it to. Whether they call up the agency that their professionals have to deal with often is entirely up to the game itself. The other thing that's also important is making sure you have the key NPCs to dish out the information that the players need in order to solve the mystery. You can't just have them wander around until eventually the monster shows up. That wouldn't be exactly fun, now would it?
Besides setting up a setting and maybe a time period that you want to put this game in, everything else should be provided by the players. They'll tell you where they want to go and what they want to find, and then they will flourish it. making it up as you go. One of the biggest things I highly would recommend for this game is having a full session 0. You're gonna want to get together, establish how the hunters know each other, because usually there is the premise that they have seen each other before. It'll be on part of their character sheets how they know each other.
Which is incredibly nice. It could be something as knowing the spook has used their powers before, and whether for ill intent or for good purposes is entirely up to them. It can also dictate how players know how they work and how they function far before they even be able to play. Whether your character is professional and everyone knows that they are, or they're keeping a secret amongst each other, someone might still have a clue.
This applies wonderful world building for your keeper. Now that you know that maybe you're all in part of the same town, that you grew up in the same high school, now the keeper can go about filling out that high school and establishing maybe what, if you were on gym team, how well they did that year. Is it going to be relevant to the plot? Maybe it will be, because your face is going to be pressed up against that trophy case. Final review! So, our pros. It's simple to learn, easy to teach, everything's on one page. It has wonderful DMing advice. I'd highly recommend reading the Keeper section all the way through, regardless of whether you're end up playing the Keeper or not, just as a future reference for any DMing advice. It's simple for both new players and new GMs. I'd recommend this even if you haven't played D&D before. Pick it up. It's so quick to learn and everything's so condensed that it makes a wonderful convention game as well, where you can teach someone the rules very simply and get to the game part rather quick. The only thing that even some people would consider a pro, I have issues with, is the Keeper doesn't roll. Because all of the monsters are reactionary and everything you're dishing out to the players is going to be information, you don't need dice. I happen to like dice and collecting them. On the other hand, this means your monsters are going to be scary regardless of what the players roll. They're going to be reacting against the players, so they will still have all their teeth, and you don't have to worry about them rolling a natural 1 and somehow flubbing this big drama scene. It's going to happen. You're the Keeper, and you don't have to roll.
Far too many times have GMs made an impressive creature and put it up against their party only to have it get beaten in the face because they can't roll higher than a 5. Trust me, I've been there. And as much as I do love rolling dice, it is kind of nice to know that a creature won't get put in a corner mostly because of bad rolls that day. But that's a good and a bad. I would consider it more of a good.
I like my dice.
That's fair.
Let's move on to cons.
And though this system is probably one of my favorites to play, and especially one of the quickest ones I ever picked up, it does have a small bit of cons. It's not too modular, meaning you can't create a new playbook if there's not already one out there. It's hard to pick up what would be good, though you might be able to try and study and figure something out. It would be hard to make one yourself. Monsters are all supposed to be modular, as it gives you the rules of how to make them, but if you want to try and do something outside the box, well, good luck with that, as balancing might be a bit of an issue. It's also rather episodic. Each campaign that you play in kind of feels like it's a episode of a TV show. Not too much happening in the back, and the monster that they're dealing with is the thing they have to complete. Though you might be working up towards a big bad villain, you can't have too many smaller individualist pieces working in the back. You might have options of which monsters to fight that week, but in the end, you will be handling only one of them at a time.
People would recommend this to any person new to RPGs. It's such a straightforward system, and everyone has the resources already at hand. A few pencils, print off a couple pages, pick up those 2d6 that you probably have in your
Monopoly?
Yeah, Monopoly. You can play the game. We'd also recommend this to anyone who loves those Monster of the Week TV shows. Supernatural, Buffy, Dresden Files. Anything where you're going to just focus on that monster and you love that, this game is 100% for you. It's going to feel exactly like those TV shows. So if you want to play Dean Winchester and Sam, go ahead. Bring in your friend, they can play Castiel.
Alrighty. Well, it was great talking to you guys. Have a great one. Enjoy those games.
Thank you for joining us here at Great Escape Games. Bye.